Hey everyone, it is so good to see you again this Sunday morning. I hope you are having an awesome week. If you are finishing up your first week of school, I hope it was a good one. If you are starting this week, good luck. And, it's going to be a good time. So, last week we talked about this like me thought, right? We talked about that playing that comparison game. And as I was doing that, as we were talking last week, it got me thinking about a kid that I went to school with in high school. We're going to call him Joe, because that's not his real name, but Joe was like the perfect kid. I played basketball with Joe my freshman and sophomore year, and then he continued to play, and I stopped because he kept growing, and I stopped. But to kind of just let you kind of see what Joe is like. He had just like the perfect everything. All right, so like perfect hair, the perfect clothes. His shoes were on point every time. He got good grades and was not just in like the super easy classes. He took hard classes and still did really well in them, even though didn't make sense why he did. But and then he played basketball and baseball and was really good at both of them. Yeah. So Joe just seemed to like he would never make a mistake. And so I'm over there then also being the awkward, quiet kid who liked to play basketball, but for some reason I thought that I should play center. And if you know anything about basketball, a center is supposed to be like the tallest guy on the floor. I'm not 6 foot. I'm not the tallest guy on the floor. So, Joe, he played more of like a forward to a guard type position and just faster, stronger, bigger. And I was over there like trying to play center and So every time we would be practicing or get into a game together, Joe made highlights, I made mistakes. And it just never made me feel very good because in my mind, I said I should be better than Joe. But I wasn't. And it never made me be a better friend to Joe. It never let me feel comfortable around him because I always felt like I was going to get one-upped, which I was going to every time. Nothing that he did to try and one-up me. He just was better at a lot of those things that I compared him against my life. And when that happens, a lot of times you feel resentful towards the people that you compare yourself against. Like most of my high school career, I felt resentful towards Joe. Nothing that he did to change that or make that happen. Just he was living life. He never knew that I felt that way either. But that's what happens when you start to feel jealous. That jealousy creeps into your life. So as that jealousy kind of creeps into your heart, you start to look at those people that you're comparing yourself against, like Joe, and you start to view them a different way, and you just become annoyed with them, and nothing that they necessarily did, right? Like Joe wasn't trying to be better than me specifically. He was just trying to win basketball games. Like that's what you're supposed to be doing. So, it might be for a million other different reasons why you start feeling agitated or start viewing them differently. Maybe it's because of their ridiculous good looks or that the car that they drive. It might be because of who they're dating, the grades they get, the position they have on the team or the role in the play, or the attention that they get, right? Some kids get more attention than others. And Or it might be the house that they live in, right? It might be a really nice house, and so that might be why that you get annoyed with that person. Or maybe it's something deeper, right? Maybe it's how they seem to have that perfect, unbroken family. It's how their parents show up at all of their events or games, how they're healthy and never sick, and you're stuck with that health problem that no one seems to understand. Or how it seems like they can have confident conversations with other people so easily. So jealousy changes the way that you see others, but it also changes the way that you see yourself. And that person becomes the source of your unhappy feelings and eventually the target of your anger, right? You are angry at Joe because he's better than me. Because you're feeling that way, right? And when we're angry with those people, it's so much harder to celebrate the good things in our lives, but also to celebrate the things in their lives. Because, when you're feeling that anger, that resentment, you start to do things like distancing ourselves from them, talk badly behind their backs, secretly do what we can to bring them down. So all of a sudden, we have less peace with them, and we have less peace with ourselves. We're not good with them or with ourselves. But the real question is, what are you going to do about it? Now, in ancient times, there was this king named Saul, all right? So in the Bible, this is where we get this story. It's in the Old Testament, so everything before Jesus, and it's in the first half of the Bible. We find this guy named Saul, all right? And he was the first king of Israel. And at this beginning part of his rule, he was considered a kind, generous, just good king, all right? And, they find themselves facing off in battle, all right? They're drawing the battle lines with these people called the Philistines. And these guys just kind of keep showing up as, like, the jerks to Israel, all right? So, they don't like each other, and that's kind of where we find the story that we're going to read. So this is in 1 Samuel, because Samuel had 2 books. This is the first one. So now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes Dammim between Socoh and Azekah. So now you know where they are. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them. All right, so you're getting this picture. So Philistines over here on a hill, Israel over here on a hill, and the valley is between them. So a champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. I don't know what cubits are, but it ends up being about 10 feet, 9, 10 feet, somewhere in there, okay? The point is real tall, real big, all right? He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. I don't know what a shekel is, but if it weighs 5,000 of them, it's got to be a lot. So David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You're not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well. As they danced, they sang, "Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands." So we jumped around a bunch there, like kind of through a couple different stories, but here's the sum up, okay? David kills Goliath, all right? He uses his slingshot, kills Goliath. He actually ends up running over and cutting off his head, and it's a cool story. Check it out. It's in 1 Samuel. But then Saul puts David in charge of, into the army and sends him on a bunch of different missions, and David just cannot do wrong, all right? Now, at this last one, as they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. So the people are celebrating now that, hey, Israel, we're victorious. We've won. We won the war against Philistines, and Saul, he killed thousands, but David, he's great. He killed tens of thousands. So Saul, he could have just been confident in himself. He could have just known, yeah, David's done an awesome job, but I'm the king. I'm in charge here, and I don't need to do anything about this. But Saul doesn't do that. He acts like a baby and throws a fit and actually ends up plotting to kill David. So, not great. And then actually spends like the rest of his rule becoming super paranoid and ends up trying to chase David, plots to kill him, and spends the rest of his time trying to kill David. Like, stops kind of worrying about everything else in his kingdom and just wants to take out David because he was jealous. That jealousy crept into Saul's mind and just stayed there. He didn't do anything to get rid of it. It just hunkered down and kind of ruined his life. And that reminds me of this proverb here. It says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. And that's Proverbs 14:30. And so, if we're not careful, kind of what this proverb is saying is, if we're not careful, jealousy can get us into that same position that Saul ended up in. It can, jealousy of a friend can rot, destroy, and ruin us. Jealousy can destroy that friendship. It can cause us to doubt our own talents, achievements, and successes. Jealousy can rot how we feel about ourselves, and it can kill our sense of peace. So we're going to constantly come across people who can do things better than us. That's just life. There's always going to be someone who can do that thing better. But the question is, what are you going to do about it? So, and if we're not careful, that gut feeling of jealousy has the potential to not only ruin our relationships with others, but also ruin the way that we feel about ourselves. So, what are we going to do about that? Here's what you can do. The more I celebrate others, the more I like me. The more I celebrate others, the more I like me. So what can we do about that? Like, we're going to come across those people who are better at those things than us. So what can we do about it? And don't miss this, because research and science will tell you that there is a solution, right? Like, you can study the brain and figure out what it is that is the counter to jealousy. It's focusing on someone else. So the more I celebrate others, the more I like me. The more I celebrate others, the more I like me. So here's two ways that you can do this, all right? So first off is start with yourself, all right? Look at what in your life is worth celebrating, all right? What in your life is worth celebrating? And then number two is move towards the person that you're jealous of. Look at what you're jealous of and look at their life and see what you can celebrate with them, all right? See what you can celebrate in their life. So if you stay committed to the process of starting with yourself and then move to that person, you'll be amazed at how that can change how you see yourself, but also that person that you're jealous of. It can completely change just how you see things. And, ask God to help you. Spend some time praying, to ask God to help change your heart, to help you go through this process of seeing what is worth celebrating in your life and what's worth celebrating in that person that you're jealous of. And guys, jealousy will rot your relationships and rot your peace. But the more that you celebrate others, the more you're going to like yourself. So, guys, I hope that you do that this week. That is my hope, is that you will start with yourself. Celebrate the things that are worth celebrating. And that person that you just feel like you can never measure up to, or is always just that little bit better, and you're feeling that jealousy of them, find something in their life. Lean into their life and celebrate something in theirs. You guys have an awesome week.